and we were fed up with all that. A measure of economic prosperity had been achieved by 1984, but we saw countless difficulties ahead, and we didn't know how heavy a price the Chinese people might still have to pay. All I could do was to help change things bit by bit. I knew I couldn't make that much difference, but that didn't matter, because there was nothing else worth doing anyway.
Singing and dancing, 1.5 million people in the capital attend the Grand National Day Evening Carnival. The carnival evening will forever remain in our memories. Come to see Tiananmen, come to see our country in 5 years' time.
On May 28, 1989, a student leader named Chai Ling requested an interview with an American journalist. Tiananmen Square was then occupied by students. Martial law had been declared. No one knew what might happen. The interview was recorded with a home video camera.
These may be my last words, because the situation is becoming very grim. My name is Chai Ling. I am 23 years old. Oddly enough, my birthday is on April 15th, the day Hu Yaobang died.
Hu Yaobang had been the general secretary of the party and Deng Xiaoping's chosen successor. Public mourning for Hu would last for a week and would become the ground from which all the demonstrations of 1989 would grow.
In many ways, the movement is not very mature. An opportunity presented itself accidentally. No one knew Hu Yaobang was going to die when he did. This movement is a great manifestation of the natural democratic instincts of the students and the people, a spontaneous expression of the people's own interests. I've come into contact with people from all walks of life. They feel they have no security. Many have gone overseas. I feel this country is finished. It's going to die.
Hu Yaobang had been removed from power 2 years before his death. He'd been accused of leaning towards bourgeois liberalism. No one protested openly when Hu was purged, but now people claimed him as a champion of enlightened rule. Mourning for him became a cover for protest against those still in power, or as it was said at the time, the men who should drop dead are still alive, yet the man who should be alive is dead.
In Chinese culture, there's a phenomenon I'd call the cult of the dead. After death, all the man's flaws are forgotten and his memory is enshrined in a halo of glory. Then people use the dead man to vent their anger and express their hopes. It was clear to me that people weren't simply concerned with one man's death. Hu Yaobang's death made it possible for a crowd to gather in a public place. It gave them something to discuss. And that led to discussions of all kinds of other issues. Most of the talk was about our own lives.
My parents kept saying, in the past, although wages were low, it was easy to raise you 3 children. How come these days, even with you holding a job, we're always short of money?
Deng Xiaoping's reforms, which had been so popular, were disappointing a lot of people by the end of the 80s. Workers could no longer count on lifelong employment, the iron rice bowl. And the socialist safety net of medical benefits and pensions was being dismantled.
Factories had trouble paying their workers, so they kicked out a bunch of people. But they didn't use the word fire. They called it reprioritizing the workforce. All these things came with reform.
Everyone knows what happened in the early stages of capitalism. The competition was savage, and there was no protection for the weak. In the quest for profits, there was a total disregard for the impact on the society and the environment. This is exactly what's happening in China right now. We're in a transitionary period. The reforms are necessary, but workers have to protect their own interests.
To get rich was glorious, said the government, but those who got rich were mostly people in power and insiders who had always done well. Only government and industry cadre could work the turnover, buying goods at fixed government prices and selling them on the free market at a big profit. More than anything else, workers complained of corruption.
The officials take and take, damn it, so why can't we take? How come when we take, we're called criminals, and when you take, you're not?
People needed to vent their anger, but they were worried because so many had been persecuted in the past just for speaking out. In a crowd, they felt it was safe to let off steam. Often someone would rant and rave and then quickly disappear back into the crowd. But I felt that the reason for a lot of my suffering was that hardly anyone took responsibility for what they said or did. I thought I should try and set an example. So I told people my name whenever I spoke, to show that I was prepared to take the consequences for what I said. I wanted to indicate to people that to change a society, you had to start with yourself.
Students and intellectuals had been among the strongest supporters of the reforms. Yet, after a decade of economic growth, they enjoyed few of the benefits.
There's a saying in Beijing, you're as poor as a professor and as dumb as a PhD. This was really true. No matter how hard you worked, you couldn't get anywhere.
There is something really wrong with the reforms. Those in power have benefited from them, not the people. Although there is superficial economic prosperity, the masses and the intellectuals have been deprived of any hope or initiative.
The Communist Party had always defined Minju, democracy, in just this way, the people in charge. But if real democracy was to be implemented, how were the people to take charge?
China is so huge, and communications are so bad. Even if you were to call national elections tomorrow, how would people know whom to vote for? Conditions weren't right for a sudden leap to that stage of democracy. But people did know whom they wanted to elect in their local community.